We're going to bring in good friend of show, Nick Osen from 24/7 Sports. Nick is here to tell us why the Wisconsin Badgers have signed Chris McIntosh and Luke Fickell to 20-year extensions.
Happy Friday, guys. How we doing? Good to be back.
What's up, Nick?
Hey,
that was
Nick.
the perfect response, Nick. Thank
Yes.
you. Just tell me to be stop being an idiot, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, Nick, we got to talk about this. There's now they're going to rock another year with Luke Fickell, it sounds like. What did you make of the news there when you heard it?
Yeah, guys, quite honestly, and I appreciate you guys always having me on. This is something that, I know Pete Thamel and ESPN kind of put it out there publicly, but we had it on our site on October 16th that this was actually the expectation that was going to happen. So to be fully honest and transparent, I didn't have much of a reaction to yesterday just because we were kind of ready for this and really going into it. But obviously now that it's out there and the messaging and things, look, I understand that there are a lot of kind of differing viewpoints. And I know that, some people and fans are certainly frustrated and things of that nature. And what I would say is, and I don't mean to say, everything's been perfect by any means or to be kind of the devil's advocate, but it's an explanation that, I was able to just kind of give to some people last night. And I do think it's at least an alternate viewpoint, even if you weren't hoping that Fickell would be back or kind of some things like that. I believe that people maybe need to not necessarily kind of adjust expectations. I'm not saying that by any means, but I think that in order to kind of get that top tier coach that some fans might be looking for, I do think that this cycle would have been really tough to do it just because of some of the openings that there are. Now, you could say that really about kind of any cycle, you're always going to have some competition. That's totally fair. To me, obviously, you guys know so much of what I do is covering recruiting. And I do believe even during this tough stretch, you are kind of seeing flashes of some of that young foundation. Is that just because of the coaches? No. Did they get those guys in here? Yes. With kind of some of the things I mentioned, the financials. Now, obviously, there's been some mixed messaging going on with that. But I personally believe that has kind of played a role with some things. I think that there's going to be time for these younger guys to develop. And I also think there is kind of some, given maybe some credence and respect to the schedules and the injuries. I think a lot of things are being put into kind of context here, guys. And I understand that it is not going to be easy to flip this overnight. I 100% get that. But with the money coming in, or expected to, I should say, right, until we see it in action, if they can bring these younger classes in and get a couple premium portal ads, I'm not saying they're going to win 10 games next year, but I think you're finally going to see, hey, this is what we expected when we brought the staff in. And I'll say that if it doesn't happen, then I do think things will likely then be reevaluated.
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you. I mean, I have them picked to cover the spread this week. That's how confident I am in this team.
Yeah, I mean,
the Badgers are on the way up. No, joking aside, do you think this move too, just to obviously announce it, make sure that it's known, is for that purpose of recruiting, right? All these recruits kind of sitting there okay, I might have some interest in Wisconsin, but if I'm unsure who the coach is going to be, that's going to change my decision. So they kind of had to make a call one way or the other. So do you think that's why McIntosh made sure to come out and just openly say, we're bringing him back. Let's get this thing going. The schedule next year looks a lot easier than it was this year in conference. Do you think that might have been some of the reason for the official announcement that Fickell will be back?
Yeah, Mason, I think without a doubt, I think you said that really well. Look, if you can think whatever you'd like, right? Obviously, fans can have their opinions, but however this played out, I think the timing of this was very important, right? If they were going to go another direction, I think you'd obviously want to get going on a coaching search. And for him to be back, obviously, which is what, we expected. And I understand for the reasons that, I kind of stated earlier. I think part of that is to paint an image of the rest of the season and get kind of the current guys ready to kind of understand what's going to happen in the offseason, and B, exactly for this class of 2026, Mason, which we have talked about a little bit on your respective shows on the network, guys. There are some really good players at the top of this class. I understand if you just click on 247 Sports and look at it, it's not going to pop like the last couple of classes have. I get that. but there are a few names. I'll mention the running back commit, 4-star Amari Latimer, and high 4-star Jaden Petit. Like, there are blue bloods that have been circling for these teams. There's legit money involved for players of this caliber. And, you know, I think that it's not just going to come down to the staff. Like, I'm working the phones with some of these guys all the time, checking in, you know, basically, hey, are you how locked in are you guys? You know, what are you kind of looking for these last few weeks? And I think a big thing is still, Mason, some semblance of offensive consistency and production. So I'm not jumping on here to say, you know, with this announcement, everybody's locked in and all is good. However, I actually did a recruiting reactions piece earlier this morning, and I do think it has provided a little bit of an understanding and stability to some of these young men and their families, for sure, Mason.
Yeah, we got Nick Osen joining the Mason Crosby Show. You can find him at 24/7 Sports or at the real Nick Osen, not the fake Nick Osen.
That's
on
right,
Twitter. The real one. Yeah, and then, you know, we talked yesterday, I think it was, about you know, JJ Watt's comments, right? Like where he was like, you know, why have you not invested, or why, you know, you own these soccer clubs, why are you not investing in the Badgers? And he just was like, they need to be better, right? And then he was like, I went and talked to the team, and then he clapped back at somebody that made a comment. He was like, I was a walk-on at Wisconsin. So I like, you kind of hit it with these recruits. Like, I'd rather them not like get these splash, you know, the 4 or 5 stars and like go chasing all those. You might need a few of those, but be creative. Go find those players, the diamond, the guys that are going to bleed for this university, that believe in the culture, believe in what's going on, because that is the Badgers' way of having success. It is just a tough, you know, physical football team that is going to go out there and lay it on the line. So do you think this 2026 class might have some more of that makeup? And then I want you to talk too about, you know, this influx of money. Like, where is this money coming from? Is there truly some like more capital that's going to go into that program to help fund this and you know, help this program get back on its feet?
Yeah, absolutely, Mason. So first off, with the recruiting aspect, you know, it's funny. Obviously, part of what I do with 247, the ratings and recruiting. So people always track that, and we're very grateful for that. But those recruitings aren't going to be, you know, 100% perfect with the ratings. They're just not. And so some of these guys, like you mentioned, maybe a diamond in the rough here and there, or, you know, the Midwest physical kind of blueprint that has been established and been used here for a long time has worked. And I will note that I think that's going to be a pretty heavy focus in 2027. And they're already off to a solid start there, right? Obviously, you need these guys to commit, but I do believe that the Badgers lead for a lot of those targets. So, Mason, I think that is something that is a renewed focus. And I think that the staff would say, you know, hey, maybe we didn't do as much of that early on. They've certainly tried, but I think that can be improved, and they're working to do so. And in terms of the money, I think a lot of it is, you know, obviously the rev share aspect, which all of these Big Ten schools are going to get. And then you break it down, like essentially however you're going to use the allotted around like $22-23 million or so. So that is what everybody's getting. And then from my understanding, I think there is also going to be a renewed grassroots effort with some of the donors, some of the top donors, maybe like reaching out to more former alumni, hopefully, you know, certainly in the football world. I mean, you mentioned JJ Watt as a great example. I think that one has been interesting because he did come here and give a pretty impassioned speech. I think it was in August here in the fall. And I think a lot of guys gravitated towards it. And I saw some of his comments, I think it was on the McAfee show, that, you know, he was joking about it a little bit to kind of the response. I think everybody can kind of spend their money really how they'd like, but with the rev share, that's something that you are looking at. And I don't mean to kind of make these excuses, but when you are comparing with some of the top places, Mason, it is interesting. I just think of, I don't know, I've seen Texas Tech, Stanford, you know, just some of these random spots where there are many, many billionaire boosters, and it is going to be tough to keep up. It's going to be an arms race, and that's why I have said at times, it's not always going to be 9, 10, 11 wins that you saw in some of these Big Ten West years, really regardless of who's the coach in my eyes. But I understood this decision. It is what I expected, guys, and I think that it's going to be, I think, better than some people think. But I know that there are a lot of fans frustrated with the season so far, and I obviously understand that too.
But Nick, I want to bring it up now with Chris McIntosh. If you go back to 2022, the expectation was they're going to be competing for championships in the future. And now they bit off more than they can chew, and they realize that's never going to happen. And we're going to go back to the same style of Wisconsin just has to be that top team in the second tier of teams in the NCAA, or they truly want to try to turn this thing around to be perennial playoff contention, being a top 12 team in the country.
Yeah, Tommy, it's a really like that is a tough thing. I mean, if I'm being honest, obviously I tend to be the optimist and kind of come up with these other viewpoints.
No, not you, Nick. No. Yeah.
I would probably think that, he maybe would have maybe tried to say some of what was said, yesterday in some of those press releases, maybe tweaked a little bit differently with the wins and losses aspect, because I'm around, obviously, the program. I'm very fortunate to forge relationships and check in often and do right by these folks as well as the fans. And I can tell you without a doubt that these guys are putting in every ounce of juice and time and squeeze that they have to be successful again. So I don't think, Tommy, that the desire has changed or the work ethic or anything. However, in this kind of weird era of like consistent messaging and, updates and social media, I understand what you're saying, because the actual words have changed a lot from the 2 or 3 years ago when that was said. So do I think that the actual desire and thoughts have changed? No. Is it probably a more uphill battle than people expected? Yeah, I think that's definitely happening, and fair to say. And Coach Fickell has talked about it being even like, not quoting exactly, but harder at times, or a little bit more of a challenge with things than expected. So I think you have to keep all that in mind, Tommy. But I will say this, right? We're going to see a lot more. We will know a lot more in the next 3 or 4 months. And I mean that because there's obviously this portal period and as well as player retention. And they have to be able to spend to get a couple premier players and bring back so much of this foundation of youth that I have been talking about, right? Because it doesn't matter if these guys don't end up staying here and finishing up here, because they're going to need that for the Badgers. So I think they're going to do a nice job with that, but I understand why you're asking kind of some of these questions. And it's something that, we're all going to be watching very closely here, because as we know, next year is kind of the year to really have your eyes glued and see, hey, is there progress or not at this point?
Yeah.
And by the way, I think that there will be, but you're right. You talked about the schedule earlier. I think Mason did. Is it like this year? It's not. But it's still not just going to be easy by any means.
Right.
Well,
right.
It's not going to be easy because they're not good. I mean, you look at the Badger team from 10 years ago, and this is a pretty easy 9-3 schedule next year. But we're not looking at that team from 10 years ago. Like it's a team that almost needs a complete rebuild. So winnable games aren't winnable anymore.
Right.
And I'm just concerned. I guess my question, Nick, would go to you. And I know we've had issues years and years and years and years and years. Every year the starting quarterback gets hurt. Is there a quarterback solution? Because if there's no quarterback solution, none of this matters, right? If there's not a quarterback who's coming in to be the number one guy who's going to make a difference for the Badgers, your football team is irrelevant. Your football team doesn't matter. Is there a quarterback solution for next year?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mitch. I don't mean to kind of avoid it. I think, if I'm being quite honest, it's something that there isn't a clear-cut answer in this moment. I think that there's going to be some talent within the room to come back and compete. But I think that's obviously a position that you're seeing. You don't need to just upgrade, but it seems like you almost need to doubly upgrade, if that makes sense. Obviously a potential starter, but then bringing in guys that, if healthy, you can trust and kind of go get on the field right away, and their chances, because there has been this crazy string of injury luck there. And I don't really know, that does seem like a lot of bad luck, but you are spot on. I mean, the more that you watch college football and watch these teams, you can be playing really anywhere in the country, but if you don't have a respected head coach and a quarterback that can win you games, it's going to be really, really tough, Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the recruiting process, right? It's like you want to get receivers, you want to get guys to come play here. You got to have that star quarterback, and you got to have the blueprint that says, hey, I'm going to go and be successful in this spot. And they just haven't been able to do it. And injuries, stuff like that. I think on the finance side, and like we talked about this a little bit, like these kind of mid-tier programs where it's like you got to kind of sometimes entice some people too. Colorado, my alma mater, is one of those as well, right? Like where you have to have this charismatic, like something to like draw people to it. Colorado got prime, and that's what they did. But like I think with alumni, especially like former players, like I think of like a Joe Thomas or like a JJ Watt or whatever there at Wisconsin, where it's like throw some money actually at them and say like you be our liaison to bring in like player alumni and bring in the money from that, because I think that creativity and that buzz and that excitement is what a lot of donors want as well. Like, yeah, it's cool to say like I'm giving money and like donating to help this program, but I think a lot of people that have all that power and that money, they also want the energy and the excitement that comes from it, rubbing elbows with certain people, doing these things. So I think that's where these organizations, especially like in Wisconsin, needs to get more creative. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, Mason, I actually think that's something that has been talked about, or at least kind of similar things that need to be changed, but I've never actually thought about that exact role. I think that is really, really well said. And you're exactly right. Like the people that do put in money, yeah, obviously they care about the product, and some people like having kind of their names or first names, last names associated with some things, but that rubbing elbows aspect is very real. And I do think that at times can also help bring in more money during tough times. So I think that is really good to say. I just don't know who exactly that would kind of be. You mentioned a couple of absolute legends in their own roles. I'm not sure if I would see kind of one of them doing it. Do I think that is something that could help? Yes. I mean, there are some things that need to be improved, but as we know, guys, like winning does cure all. So as you look and get ready for next year, I think that a lot of kind of the questions and thoughts would be maybe pushed to the side or at least quickly improved if you just simply see probably 8 or 9 wins on the field.
Do you see a bump this weekend? Let's just go direct to, kind of like for current what's going on. Do you see like with this news with McIntosh coming out and just saying, all right, Fickell's going to be back next year? Do you see any kind of like energy bump in that for this team? And like we might see a better showing against Washington. Obviously they played a good game against Oregon, best game of the season probably. Do you see something like that happening this weekend against Washington?
Yeah, Mason, I'm glad you mentioned the Oregon point, because I do think, with kind of the injuries and disparity in talent levels at times, they played actually a solid game. B+ type of game did the Badgers. So I'm not sure you're going to see that, just because I'm not sure that the energy and belief has really ever been an issue, if I'm being quite honest.
Okay.
It's something that I've said before that I think those guys are still pretty consistent with. Do I think that there's going to be a bump in terms of opportunities for the young talent, though? I do. I do think now that this news is out there, you're looking to win games and you're looking to then build the foundation going forward, Mason.
Very nice. Appreciate you, Nick.
Let's quick basketball update.
John Blackwell's awesome.
Yeah,
right?
John Blackwell can fill the basket.
We'll definitely have to talk some more hoops the next time, but yes, he can. Nick Boyd did, obviously 21 points. Blackwell 31. Badgers look to get to 2-0 tonight against an NIU team. They can score a little bit. They hit 100 earlier this week, but Badgers are, I think, 29-point favorites. So should be 2-0 going into next week, guys. So
you're feeling positive about the basketball program as of November 7th?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Will Hunter Simmons have more completions or John Blackwell have more threes tonight versus tomorrow?
Wow.
Well, I'm not so sure, Tommy, that it's going to be Simmons. I think it's, Danny O'Neal's in the mix. I think you're going to see a little bit of Carter Smith this next month.
Oh,
so,
okay.
I don't think I'd bank on Simmons this weekend, probably.
Okay. So John Blackwell, that's the answer. Got it. All right. Perfect.
Nicely done. Nick, thank you so much for jumping on. We will definitely talk down the road and keep up doing the great work there in Madison. And when we get our Badger updates, we know it's from you.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
You
right,
as
thanks,
well.
Nick. Thanks,
Nick.
Nick.
Yeah, Nick Osen, 247 Sports. The real Mason, the real
The
Nick
real.
Osen. Yes.
The real.
Yep, for sure.
He's always so happy.
Got to put that. Yep. He's positive.
He
I
is.
can feel every time he's on, I feel Tommy just like kind of like his
I
whole being just kind of shrinks in. He's like,
I had a two ends of the spectrum going for 1 o'clock today, and Nick was the guy who got back to me. Always love when he gets on, and I know he can talk everything Badgers. But I tried to get negative to this part.
I actually wonder.
he didn't let you. He didn't let you go
No.
there.
If Nick and Jocko got in the same room, because they're both so Badger positive that it's like, I wonder, like, would we be drinking the red Kool-Aid if we got the two of them together in a round table?
No,
I like it. I like the positivity.
No, I know you do.
Yeah.
It's
I'm here for it.
The speaking of the positivity, the NCAA has tested positive for illegal gambling over and over and over and over again. Let's keep that going. Oh, they stink.
You can have another rhyme for us when we come out.
Maybe. You never know.
Okay.
It is Friday. I feel like Rebecca Black might be on deck.
Perfect.
This is the Mason Crosby Show, presented by Verizon, the official